So let's talk about this first way to overcome head trash, and that's not to keep it inside. Now, if we go back, we talked about the things that come in through what we see and who we talk to and what we experience. That's all stuff that's coming in. We're going to have some way to push that outside of us if we don't want to continuously live with those thoughts. So there are actually 3 exercises I'm going to mention here. And we actually put all these exercises into a downloadable resource to make it super, super easy for you guys. I'll mention that at the end. We'll also send a copy of that resource in our follow-up email to today's webinar. So you can use the guides within that resource to use these exercises. But really, it's most important to, when you have these thoughts, when you first have head trash, should just recognize that that is what it is. That's kind of the first step to recovering from head trash, is to say, oh, wow, that's head trash. Now I know what it is, so I can act from a different place and work to treat this head trash. So for simple thoughts, it's an easy thing to say something like, thank you, mind, for sharing. You're a little negative today, but thanks for sharing. I'm going to choose to move on in this kind of way. Some days we have those light head trash days, and other times we have full-blown bad hair days. So let's talk a little bit more about this first method, which is write it out. Now, this is for those of you that get the most out of writing things. Some people prefer to speak versus to write, and that's why I have 3 different exercises, because it's based on your personal preference. You're likely not going to use all 3 of these exercises, but one of these might stick out to you. So if you have that head trash and you just cannot get out of it, you can't stop thinking it, write it out. Take a pen and paper, a notebook. You may even have a head trash notebook where you work out these types of issues. You may type it out. List your fears, your insecurities, list what it is that you are struggling with. And then once you've listed it out, reverse it. List those positives. How have you overcome fear in the past? How have you overcome an insecurity in the past? How have you overcome loss? How can you turn stress into a positive or irritation into a positive? Take that head trash moment and flip it on top of its head by explaining to yourself how you're going to reverse that thought. What have you done in the past to overcome? That's the first example that I'm going to share with you guys. And then the second is to speak it out alone. Now, you may have situations where it's beyond, I can write this out and get over it, or I can just think about it and get over it. You may have something that you encounter in your life that is a real challenge, and you feel it needs to be escalated a bit further. Find a quiet place and really speak those thoughts out. There is something to be said for speaking out the negativity that's within us. It's a really interesting thing, and I didn't take much stock into it until a close friend of mine actually explained how this process works and how physiologically, when you release the negative thoughts that are inside of you, it actually gives your body a physical release, and that you physically will feel better, emotionally you'll feel better just by getting it out. So I encourage you, if this is something, whatever particular issue you're struggling with, if your head trash is at this point, speak it out. Find that quiet place and feel it, frame it, and release it. That is the framework for this one. So what exactly are you feeling? How can you frame what you're feeling and release it? Where do you feel tension inside your body? Release it. I know it sounds a little crazy, but try it. Before you knock it, try it. The last one that I have here is to speak it out with a boss or a mentor. If you're experiencing head trash that is work-related, this is the best place to go, because oftentimes when we have head trash that's work-related, it might actually have to do with our work, our role, our job, someone we work with. Maybe it's a new rule that got pushed down or a new protocol, something like that. Or perhaps folks are just struggling with the way that customers are interacting. There's so many different scenarios. I couldn't possibly name them all. But it's important to remember that in certain situations, you want to go to someone else for mentorship to help you to get through a particular situation. You know, an example that I like to give is if you're struggling in your relationship with your sister, for example, let's say that you guys got into a fight over something, or she said something to you and it gave you terrible head trash. And now all you can think about is how horrible you are because she told you you're horrible. It's not going to do you any good to go to another sibling or a friend or one of your parents or whoever to talk about that particular situation. And that's what we do all too often, right? We have a conversation with a friend, our friend says something to us, and then we go talk to another friend. We call this gossip, right? Unfortunately, that's not going to help to resolve the head trash. If you want to resolve it, you need to go to the person that you have the issue with. So if that person was your sister, go to your sister. If it was your boss, go to your boss. If it was another employee, coworker that you work with, you're going to want to talk to them. However, you may want to seek the advice of your mentor first before you speak to them, so you have the right words to say. Especially if it was a confrontation where somebody said something that upset you, you've really got to make sure you're not going back into that conversation from emotion and from an emotional place. Give yourself some time to kind of settle down, think it through, speak it out to your boss, talk through the right way to approach that situation.